As I'm not a PowerPoint person, but I have to use a PowerPoint. but yeah, foremost, I want to thank my mentor and senior colleague, Dr. Murthy, and it's wonderful that we had an opportunity to hear from Sophie Mitra, who's actually leading this initiative. And more wonderful is to have Anavaram sir here. He acceded to my request and came over. Thank you very much, Anavaram sir. And I had to mobilize some people. So I mobilized about 60, 70 people from the university, promised them high tea, and they got their high tea. And it's also nice to have others as well. So very quickly, I'll take just 5 minutes of my time because specifically I'm going to address the issues related to functional disability questions at the national level in terms of how do we get it into the surveys which we are doing, as well as the information which we are gathering, and especially related to the functional disability question. So what I've tried to do is I've just tried to structure the presentation in terms of reinforcing this concept of what we call as ICF, which we have moved from handicaps, disabilities, and impairments towards ICF. Then a little bit about NFHS 5, which Annavaram sir alluded to. And then just want to tell you about why the NFHS 6 does not include questions on disability. Probably you'd be taken aback, but the decision was made last year in May that NFHS 6 will not include the questions which were asked in NFHS 5. And I'll tell you the reasons behind it and what are the possible alternatives in terms of including some questions on functioning in our disability data. That's precisely what I'll do in the next 5 or 6 minutes. Next. I think I just don't want to reinforce this fact that when you're looking at the ICF classification, that's an interaction between both the health state, the body function structure, limitations of activities, as well as restriction in terms of participation. And this is influenced by both environmental factors as well as personal factors. And that's precisely what the ICF conceptualizes as a person's level of functioning. This is where it is important in terms of moving from an anatomical or a medical state to a functioning thing. And that's very important for us to look at ICF as a classification. Next. I thought this would be a wonderful opportunity to share information from the Indian context. And this, I think I'm more justified in doing it because I had the opportunity to review this article, which was published in Frontiers. And this was to do with prevalence pattern and determinants of disabilities in India from the NFHS data. And this comes from a group in Odisha. I think Pratyusha must be very interested to look at this set of data from Dr. Sangamitra Pati in terms of the data. Just to give you an illustration very quickly, these are the questions which was included from NFHS 5. So you see very quickly, there are questions in terms of asking about does any usual resident of your household, including you, have any disability? That apart, record name and line number of each person mentioned. If no more persons with any disability, record 95. For each person with a disability, ask hearing, speech, visual, mental, locomotor, other. These were the questions which were included in the NFHS file. And the description, as we say in epidemiology, the first step towards anything is case definition. So these were the definitions which were put up. And these were the, even the data collectors or the animators or enumerators were trained to collect information related to this. And these were all self-reported information. Next slide. Very quickly from this particular article, it's interesting for us to note, if you look at the donut diagram on the left side, you find that locomotor happens to be the proportionally higher disability, followed by mental, then speech, visual, and then hearing. And if you look at the radar plot on the other side, it's very evident that as age advances, the disabilities also advance. And you also looked at socioeconomic status in terms of people who have completed the number of years of education. And this very clearly, this bar chart shows you the relationship or the correlation or the determinants between educational status and types of disability. Again, going into a little more, detail, this is with respect to what you heard from Sirs Maldives and Pakistan. What we have is the Indian context in terms of the A, B, C, and D, which very clearly tells you about the aspects related to whether it is, you can just move the thing on top. The A shows you overall prevalence of pattern of disability under the NFHS. B is distribution of locomotor disability. C is distribution of mental disability and speech disability. These four maps show you the illustrations with respect to what it is. In order that I summarize what has been presented in this particular NFHS data 5, it talks about overall prevalence of disability in India is 4.5%. It's better than census estimates of 2011, which said 1%, less than what we have got from other sort of data, which when you look at data sets and when you look at it, which is about 10 to 12%. So it stands between about 1% on the census side to 12%, including the functional side. And because it's a self-reported thing, and what is overtly evident is the locomotor disability. But I still can't, fathom the fact that how people with mental illness or mental, thing have expressed that they have a mental problem. Usually it's taboo, even in surveys and those kind of things. People don't express it, but that's what has been found. Age, education, geography, socioeconomic status, gender, access, and discrimination. I should add both are associated with disability, and that is something which has been evident in terms of it. And when you're looking at intervention, not only you have to disaggregate the data based on local circumstances or contextual level disaggregation, but it also has to be disaggregated against these determinants in terms of policy development. Next. So why questions on disability were dropped from the National Family Health Survey? I tried to look at it, and the versions from the government, versions from the researchers, my own version, etc. All of that has been sort of summarized, and I've tried to put it in bullet points. I think the reasons it was dropped was because of the aspect related to self-reported questions. Whatever you report is recorded, and that is used. It may be an underestimate. If you're expecting some benefit, it may be an overestimate. Usually that's what happens. And the government says that you don't see a visible change in disability status within 2 to 3 years period. And that is why if you're carrying out a National Family Health Survey 6, 2 or 3 years after National Family Health Survey 5, there's not going to be a big change. As a matter of fact, it will be more time consuming. That's one of the refrains from what the government said, right? And very evident, and what also Annavaram sir mentioned with respect to the anecdote, which actually fits in very well with what I'm trying to tell you is, it's not comprehensive enough. Again, it records only the anatomical disability, or it's a medical diagnosis. So it records only 1995 listed disabilities, but it does not take into consideration the rights of persons with disability 2016. Again, it's a medical model, not a biopsychosocial model, which is the UNCRPD ratification, which we have done, and also Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016. That's the reason at this point in time, NFHS 6 does not include any questions which I mentioned in the previous NFHS 5 on disability. So what are the alternatives? I think the alternatives are probably we have to develop a separate survey for persons with disabilities. It must be very comprehensive. Or we have to modify disability specific surveys to include data points that were originally I would not attest to this fact, but because it's again capturing what we have captured earlier as well and doesn't include the functional aspects related to it. and possibly including disability data as part of other general data collection initiatives is one other ways which we can look at. So in order to do that, do we have the next sort of what's the best alternative? This was mentioned a lot in terms of the Washington group questions, which include a little bit of functionality in terms of difficulty, etc. And whether you use the short set or the extended set, etc. It's up to resources and it's up to the way you need to do it. And the model disability survey, which the WHO is proposing, but mind you, the model disability survey by itself takes about an hour or hour and a half to complete for one person. So in order that, where do we draw a sort of distinction between, or where do we draw a compromise between both the Washington group and the model disability survey? Somewhere we need to advocate, at least at a pilot level. If the commissionerate in Telangana is ready to, sort of commission this particular thing, we have people here who can go and collect data and we can come up with the information. And this could be a very good model to be scoped up or scaled up to the whole country. And that's something which we can do. And it's about trying to get functional questionnaires into our thing and measuring disability as relevant to functioning rather than as relevant to anatomical site. So I guess we have facilitating tools in terms of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, the Persons with Disability Act of 2016. But also you have to understand, only in 2010, 4 years after we ratified, or 3 years after we ratified CRPD, we were nowhere in terms of disability when it comes to the 8 Millennium Development Goals. But at least now, 5 or 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals are directly impacting disability. And hence, there's a move towards looking at the benefits of persons with disability act, benefits of the SDGs for persons with disabilities. And I think we need to leverage this kind of an opportunity for us. And I thank my senior sir for giving me this opportunity, and it's a pleasure to share this with you.